Alice in Wonderland, an abridged retelling of the beloved tale by Lewis Carroll. It was a warm, golden afternoon. The sun stretched sleepily across the grass, and a little girl named Alice sat under a tree with her big sister. Her sister was reading a book, but it didn't have any pictures or conversations in it. That, Alice thought, was a rather dull kind of book. Toto, Alice's imaginary toy rabbit, was tucked under her arm. Her real cat Dinah purred nearby. "I wish something exciting would happen." Just then, a white rabbit with pink eyes rushed by. He wore a red jacket and checked a shiny pocket watch. Oh dear, I shall be late," he muttered. Alice blinked. "A rabbit with a watch?" she whispered. The rabbit dashed into a hole under a tree, and without a second thought, Alice followed. Alice fell, but it wasn't a scary fall. She floated gently like a feather in the wind. Around her were bookshelves, globes, glowing lamps, and floating cookies. "Curious," Alice said, twisting gently in the air. She saw a teacup spinning slowly beside her, a painting of a smiling cat, and even a map that whispered secrets. Finally, plop, she landed on a soft pile of leaves. Alice stood up and dusted herself off. She found herself in a hallway filled with doors of every shape and size, tall ones, round ones, and one that was only as big as a mouse. On a little glass table was a golden key. She tried it on the biggest door. Nope. The smallest door? Nope. Then she spotted a teeny tiny door behind a curtain. She peeked through it and saw the most beautiful garden in the world. Glowing flowers, sparkling fountains, and butterflies shaped like stars. "I must get in," Alice said, but the door was far too small. Then she saw a bottle on the table. It had a little tag, "Drink me." "Well, why not?" Alice said. She took a sip. Whoosh! She began to shrink, smaller and smaller until she was the size of a teacup. "Oh dear!" Alice laughed. But then, oh bother! She had left the key on the table. Alice looked around and spotted a box labeled "Eat Me." Inside was a tiny cake. She took a nibble. Zoom! She grew taller and taller until her head touched the ceiling. "Oh no, now I'm too big!" She started to cry, and her giant tears splashed like a rainstorm. Suddenly, a soft breeze blew from the keyhole, and some of the shrinking magic floated up to her face. Shrink! She was small again, and fell right into her own puddle of tears. She floated around, paddling with her hands, when she saw a little mouse swimming too. "Hello," said Alice. "Do you know the way out of this puddle?" The mouse blinked. "Only if you enjoy silly races." Soon, Alice and the mouse met a group of animals gathered around a tall dodo bird wearing a monocle. "We must dry off," said the dodo. "Time for a caucus race." "What kind of race is that?" asked Alice. "There are no rules, no finish line, and everyone wins," the dodo declared. Animals ran in circles, jumped, skipped, and even waddled in pairs. Alice laughed and clapped. When they were dry and happy, she thanked them all and continued down the hall. Alice heard a familiar voice. It was the white rabbit, muttering again. "Oh no, where are my gloves? My fan?" He saw Alice and shouted, "Mary Ann, fetch them from my house." "I'm not Mary Ann," Alice tried to say, but the rabbit was already gone. Still curious, she went to his little house and found the gloves and fan. But on a nearby table was another bottle that said, "Drink me." "One tiny sip," she said. Boom! Alice grew enormous, so big she couldn't move. Birds fluttered by. "A monster's in the house," they chirped. Alice grabbed a biscuit and crunched it. Poof! She was small again and slipped out quickly. "I really must stop drinking strange things," she muttered. She walked into a glowing field of talking flowers, roses, daisies, tulips, and sunflowers. "Oh, a wildflower," said a rose. "She has legs," gasped a daffodil. "I like her," giggled a violet. The flowers danced in the breeze and sang silly songs. Alice danced too, spinning with laughter. A sunflower bowed. "To find the garden, follow the smile." "The smile?" Alice asked. Alice came to a twisty tree. A smile floated in the air, then eyes, then ears, and finally a striped purple cat hanging by its tail. "Hello," purred the Cheshire Cat. "Do you know which way I should go?" "Depends on where you want to end up," he replied with a grin. "I want to find the lovely garden." "Then try the Mad Hatter's tea party," the cat said, fading away until only his smile remained. Alice followed a trail of crumbs to a long table set under a tree. A Mad Hatter, a March Hare, and a Dormouse were sitting there, pouring tea into hats and throwing sugar cubes in the air. "There's no room," the Hatter shouted. Alice looked around. "But there's plenty of room." "Have some tea," the March Hare said. "But I haven't been offered any yet," Alice replied. "Then it's your unbirthday," shouted the Hatter. They sang, "A very merry unbirthday to you." The Dormouse mumbled sleepy stories about jam and jellyfish. Alice giggled. "You're all quite mad." "We're all mad here," said the Hatter proudly. After a few more spoon-throwing contests, Alice waved goodbye and continued her journey. At last, she saw a garden gate. It led to a bright palace where card-shaped people rushed about with paintbrushes. "What are you doing?" Alice asked. "Painting the roses red," said the Two of Hearts. "We accidentally planted white ones, and the Queen only loves red." Alice helped dip a brush into the paint. Suddenly, a trumpet blared. "Make way for the Queen of Hearts." The Queen of Hearts had a round red dress, a golden crown, and a voice that boomed like thunder. "Off with their heads!" she shouted, pointing randomly. "Why?" Alice asked, confused. "No reason," the Queen said cheerfully. The Queen invited Alice to play croquet, but it was the silliest game ever. The mallets were flamingos, the balls were hedgehogs, and the hoops were card soldiers. Alice tried her best, but the flamingo kept turning around and the hedgehog rolled away to nap. The Queen stomped. "Off with— oh, never mind," she grumbled. Just then, the Cheshire Cat floated above. "Having fun?" he grinned. Alice frowned. "This place is too strange." A trumpet sounded. "The Knave of Hearts is on trial." Alice followed the Queen and her court to a silly courtroom made of cake frosting and jelly beans. The king wore glasses too big for his nose. The jury was made of animals and cards. "He stole my tarts!" yelled the Queen. "Did not!" squeaked the knave. "Bring in the evidence!" the king cried. A scroll was read, a nonsensical poem about jam, dreams, and socks. "This makes no sense," said Alice. "You're all being ridiculous." Suddenly, she began to grow, and grow, and grow. Alice stood tall over the courtroom. She looked around and said firmly, "You can't tell people what to do just because you wear a crown." The Queen shrieked, "Off with her head!" But Alice stood her ground. "You're not in charge of me." Suddenly, all the cards flew into the air, swirling around her. The Queen vanished. The courtroom faded. Alice blinked. She was back under the tree. The leaves whispered above her. Her sister was still reading. "Did you have a nice nap?" her sister asked with a smile. "I think I had the most curious dream in the world," Alice said. And she smiled to herself, remembering a white rabbit, a tea party, and a very silly game of croquet. The end.